Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Houston, and the learning target we're working on, this is part 2, is I can use my knowledge of adjacent angles to determine the missing value. All right, and in this case, you'll notice on the back of the worksheet, you have some questions that have an X in them. Remember that X just represents a value that we don't know. So it's something that we're trying to find out. So I wanted to start here. I changed this question around a little bit to help you to see the idea. So remember, when we have adjacent angles, we know that this smaller angle plus this smaller angle should add up to 140 degrees. Okay, the whole angle. So we know that whole measurement. Okay, so how could we figure out the measure of this angle over here, knowing these three things? Okay, now since we know that the whole thing is 140 and this one is 110, remember we can subtract one of the smaller ones to figure out what is the other smaller angle equal to. Okay, so in this case, we just found that that has to be equal to 30. Okay, now remember 3 times x means 3 times some number, and now we know 3 times that number has to equal 30. Okay, so hopefully maybe in your head you can figure out that 3 times 10 is 30. If you weren't sure, remember you can always divide. So we just figured out that x equals 10. All right, so that's kind of the just let me think it through way of solving it. Okay, but what I want to do is give you a way that you could solve any question like this. Let's say there's more complicated things. Maybe there's more than one x going on, okay? What's a way that we could solve this? So remember, at the beginning, in the last video, we said that a plus b had to equal the whole thing. I'm actually going to call that c right now. All right, so we know that a, one of the small angles, plus b, the other small angle, has to equal c, which is the big angle, the two put together, right? So if we look at what we have 110, that's A. We had 3x for B, and then we knew that C was 140 degrees. Okay, so what we just did here was we wrote an equation. And now we're going to solve the equation for x, if you remember doing that before. And it follows the exact same procedure that we did up here. Okay, first we're going to subtract the 110 from both sides. We end up with 3x equals 30. I'm going to move this down just a bit. And then we divide both sides by 3 and we get x equals 10. Okay, so we just figured out the answer, and we got the same thing using by solving the equation as we did is just by thinking it through. Okay, so the one thing I want to caution you on is you don't want to just go to your calculator and type this in, put in 3x and then hit equals. Okay, I'll show you real quick on my calculator, and I would encourage you to try it too. On your normal screen, we don't know what x is, but when we type in 3x, I get 0. Okay, if you type in 3x, you might get something different because your calculator has some number stored for x, and I'm not sure how it does that, but for everybody's calculator, it's going to plug something different in, so you can't put the x on this screen. The only time we use the x is when we're going to graph something. Then you can type the x in, because then you go to your table and it shows you all the different values of x and what the y would be. Okay, but when we're looking for just what value of x, the one value, and all we have is this, you can't type that in on your screen like this. Okay, let's take a look at one of the ones from the back of your paper. And if you notice here, I just want to show you. So let's say I type in 16x plus 4 into my calculator to try to get a value. I get 4. I know that a student in class today typed it in and got 164. And I think one of the other ones got 4 like I did. So it can't have multiple different answers for one angle measure, right? There has to be one measure for that angle. So we don't want to use our calculator in that way. Okay, so I'm going to color code here. Let me get a blue. So HGF is 16x minus 4. So remember, trace the letters HGF. That's this whole thing is 16x. I'm sorry, I think I said minus. I meant plus 4. Okay, EGF is 110. Let me trace EGF. So that's this one is 110. Okay, and then we have HGE is 3x. HGE. Okay, now notice this one is very similar to this last one. I changed it a little bit. So remember, it looks a little bit more confusing with these multiple x's and stuff, but we can write an equation to try to find the value of x because we know this one plus this one has to equal this one. Okay, so 110 plus, I'm sorry, I missed the 11. How did I do that? I was so excited to turn back the page. So it should be 110 plus 3x plus 11 equals 16x plus 4. Okay, now I'm going to encourage you to pause the video now. I don't want to make this video super long, so pause it now, solve that equation, and then when you come back, you can check your work. Okay, let's check this real quick. Remember, you can use the steps. Don't call me after midnight. So the first is to distribute. We didn't have parentheses. The C is combine like terms. So I combined the 110 with the 11 and got 121. Move the variable. See, I'm moving the 3x. I did the opposite here to get it to cancel out. So I subtracted 3x from both sides. Undo addition and subtraction. I had plus 4, so we did minus 4 on both sides. And then midnight was multiply or divide. We had multiply, so we had to divide both sides by 13, and I got x equals 9. Okay, if you look back up at the question, it said to find x, so we're done. But if it did ask you to find one angle HGE, you would just go back here and you plug in your value, 3 times 9 plus 11. And let's use the calculator real quick here and check our work. Okay, we could do 16 times 9 plus 4, and let's see how we did. Okay, so 3 times 9 plus 11 gives us a measure of 38 for this angle. We had 110 for this angle already. And then let's see here, 16 times 9, whoopsie, 16 times 9 plus 4 is 148. Okay, so let's check. Do these two, is 110 plus 38 148? Yes, it is. Okay, so we checked it, and we know we have the right answer.